Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Did the Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and we're not going to waste any time today. We have a great guest, so real quick, let me introduce you to your host with the most, Richie the Witch Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
As usual, I am the great guest today, so thank you for that. No, we're just kidding. Like you said, we're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm excited to see how this conversation goes and to learn all the ins and outs with everything and maybe some special director's commentary stuff too. I don't know. But let's go ahead and throw it back to you so we can get going. The man, the myth, the Dookie Blaster himself. It is Miles.
Guys, I'm so excited to have our guest on today. She joined us for the first time 3.5 years ago in November of 2017 to talk about the episode Cape Fear, an episode that she was a fan of before she wrote for the show. But now we have today to talk about the first episode that she wrote for The Simpsons, our returning guest, Carolyn Omine. Welcome back, Carolyn. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Legitimately, I've been just buzzing about this conversation for a while. I've been very, very excited to have you back on the show. When you were on before, we learned so much about your life before you got to The Simpsons. We learned about you growing up in Hawaii. We learned about your time with a band. We learned about your time with the Groundlings doing improv, which inspired me in so many ways. And we just learned. Oh, go ahead.
And I'm just so thrilled that you took off from there and did improv.
Our conversation was a catalyst that I needed to get my ass off the couch, quite frankly. So thank you for that. But we learned a lot about your life coming up to The Simpsons, and that was so much fun. We talked to you as a Simpsons fan. Today, we're talking about you as a Simpsons writer and about your episode, that Little Big Mom. That just instantly, when you watch it after our conversation, you can see so much of you in that script.
Thank you.
So I guess to get started, what I would like to ask about is you were already working for the show, and I think that's kind of where we left off on the last one. So tell us about the transition from, I think it was season 9 or season 10 when you started staff writing, and then you transitioned to full-time. Yeah, you tell us. You know better than I do.
Well, yeah, it's sort of the same thing, like once I joined the staff in season 10. So, it basically is the same job. It wasn't any sort of promotion to when I finally wrote. It's just that, you just wait till you get assigned a script. And so I was there. I was just helping with the rewrites on some of these things from season 9. So I remember my first joke, because it just sticks in my head, was Viva Ned Flanders. It was the Vegas joke. It was a sign joke where it was loosest craps in town was my sign joke, and I was very excited because that was the first thing that was going to appear on TV. Simpsons, even though I don't think I'm not even credited yet and as a member of the staff. But it was actually a long time getting a script. I guess there was a big staff, and I remember at one point there was only 2 scripts left, and Tom Martin and I were both new, and they were like, Mike Scully said, okay, we're going to have like a pitch off between you two. And he told us, but we've had so many Homer and Bart stories. So we only want to do a story with Marge or Lisa I think only Marge or Lisa. So, so we were like racking, and it was this really kind of nerve wracking because it was like me and Tom Martin are going to have this pitch off just between the two of us. And then they hired Al Jean, but Al Jean came back. Like, he had been gone for a bit, and he came back. And so it was like, Tom and I are like, oh, here comes the day. What is the pitch off? And like, we were so nervous with our little papers. And then it was like, Al was like, oh, we're pitching stories. I've got a few. And he pulls out this notebook with like he just had all these stories that he's been thinking of. And we're like,
I guess he wasn't really that away from the show after all.
And of course, Mike doesn't say, no, the rules are no Homer or no Bart. And so he pitches all these really great Homer stories. And eventually it became the one where the man who came to criticize dinner, the one where he's a food critic. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, that year it was like, well, I mean, it was so much funnier than, not that, Lisa and Marge stories tend to be a little bit more emotional. And this was like a big, funny thing. And it got all these big laughs. And of course, it was Al. So it was like, well, get the business. We're just like, well, okay. Guess we'll do the show next year. So, so we went like a whole year without having an episode. And, it was a great episode. I thought Al's episode about, where, all the food restaurants in town go against him, whatever. So then the next season, actually, Mike came to me and said, I have this idea for a show. And it was just a really small idea, like just the germ of an idea that Marge gets hurt somehow and Lisa has to take over cleaning the house. Like that's what he had. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then I had been working on a pitch, mainly because at one point Ron Hauge had said the phrase "monkey knife fights." I was trying to figure out how could we get to monkey knife fights. So I had already prepared a pitch for a story where the Simpsons house sit for Burns and discover he has a boat, and then realize once they're in international waters, anything goes. So they can have monkey knife fights. And that became the Mansion family. But we just gave that because I was already given this story. The Mansion family, we just gave to Schwartzwelder, and he had this fantastic first draft. I really love. Like, there's one time where I can't even remember it. But they're like Bart says something and says like a famous cowboy, and Lisa just says some famous woman. I don't know if this trip, but anyway, yeah. So that's how it came to be, and then we just got in a room and started pitching from there. Just all we knew was that the main crux was that Lisa would take over the taking care of the house, and would see. We kind of wanted her to be a little kind of cocky, a little bit like, Mom, I'm a little more. I'm going to approach it a little more intellectually, and I'm going to, she kind of thinks that maybe she can run it a little bit smoother, and then she's of course going to learn that it's not very easy at all.
I love seeing Lisa's that sounds cruel to say. I love seeing Lisa's downfall, but her transition where you can see early on where she has that oh, I'm going to help Mom and it's going to be so great. And look at my boys and that type of stuff. And then the dark circles start to form and the little things when even Maggie shoves her away and she hasn't had a single adult conversation or, Lisa level of conversation the whole day. All those things are really fun to watch, even though it's, at the expense of watching Lisa suffer.
Yes, I know. Yardley's always sad and thinks we enjoy watching her suffer. They all do suffer, but I do think that this is a story about Lisa coming to appreciate Marge. And
sure.
I think that, and just all of us in general, we kind of think oh, Mom's got it, sometimes we don't think we don't realize what a difficult job it is. And especially when you have to deal with Homers and Barts.
Of course. Yeah. They're an amplified version of so many of us, but a lot of the things too hit so I found them so relatable, and particularly the one at the very beginning where Marge is trying to give the stuff away to Goodwill. And they all have a complete panic, and we see Homer actually sprint for one of very few times in his life. But that was so really, I remember having that battle with my mom all the time as a kid, constantly every year.
Yeah, no, with my son, even from when he was very little, I first was okay, well, I'm gonna go through each one. Do you want this? And you realize if you ask him, then everything suddenly becomes no,
that's my favorite toy ever. I use it all the time, Mom. Calm down.
So really, the best way is sneak it away, get it out of there before they know.
I like that in the episode too. One of it was just a box. It wasn't the actual item. It was just a box for the item that they wanted to keep.
Oh yeah, if I still had that, I could put it in there.
Yeah, well, of us who like toys, we all, I'm sure somewhere there's a little stash of the boxes that you've kept for them.
Oh yes, because they're so much more valuable if you keep the box. That's the important part. So another thing I want to talk about on this episode is it's actually got a lot of firsts. Now, one of the things I'll bring up is I did watch a commentary for this episode, which featured Mike Scully, Mark Kirtland, George Meyer, Matt Selman, who came in late to the recording, and you from 16, 17 years ago now are also on the commentary for this episode. And we learned that this episode features a lot of Simpsons firsts. For one, it was the first episode in the year 2000. It's listed on IMDb as the first episode in the new millennium, though I'm confident that somebody is going to gripe and be like, actually, the new millennium started in 2001. So, whatever. But it's also the first time the Simpsons go to Hawaii, your home state, which is, I know, is very special for you to bring the Hawaii to the Simpsons. And then also I'd like you to talk about what that meant to your father that you talked about a little bit on the commentary. But honestly, I wanted to start by saying I find it hard to believe that in 11 years, the Simpsons hadn't found their way to Hawaii yet. Like, it just seems like they've traveled so much. It's like, surely they had a layover on their way to Tokyo.
I know. Yeah, I know. They hadn't. And so it was very exciting. And my dad, who's not a real like pop culture person, and I don't know if he even really watched The Simpsons, and he's just this sort of local Hawaiian guy, and he's just like, and I remember kind of telling him like, oh, I got this job, and it's a big deal. And he was like, oh, well, good for you. Like I had to like try, but he didn't really know. And then, it's somebody from the Honolulu. It was either the Star Bulletin or Advertiser. They've combined since, but this article came out in our local paper, and it was in the entertainment section. It was this big picture. It was really cool. I didn't realize how great it was going to be, mostly because it was so cool for my dad. Like, I didn't get a lot of people going, hey, I saw this thing, but my dad was like all these. Also, the woman was so sweet. So my dad had a service station. He's a mechanic. So our Omine Auto Service, she mentioned, like, she put it in. So like people are calling the station, and he was so excited, and it's such a strange, he was like, oh, I feel, I don't know, like I'm going to a party or something. Like, describe how much. And then he said like, he's very shy, and he's been going to church a lot. And he said like, he goes, everybody gets up, and he said he finally got up and he said, I see a lot of people, they get up and they talk about how much they love Jesus. And I couldn't really relate. Like, I remember thinking like, that's probably not the thing to say when you stand up in church. And then he said, but then now I feel that way about my daughter. So anyway, he's like, that is the sweetest thing. And I just also, you're thinking like, I bet a lot of people were like, but it was such a sweet thing. And he was very excited, and then since then became kind of a Simpsons fan.
That's actually kind of cool. It took he's like, oh yeah, he worked for some little cartoon show. That's nice. But then like once it blows up, he realizes like, oh.
Yeah, he just wasn't. I don't think he was like a cartoon watching kind of guy.
Sure,
that was his thing, but no.
That's fair. I think that's a pretty sweet story just to hear that, it had such an impact. And you said you don't really find when you go back to your hometown that like, do people just like, oh, it's just Carolyn, from back in the day, or are you a big deal there now too?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes there's some people that will, like, if they're sort of interested in writing or maybe sort of some version of show business, they'll be interested. But I don't know. I kind of felt like even when I went to like my high school reunion, I kind of felt like at first people would say stuff to me and they would sort of drop little hints that I thought, like, I remember this one guy was like, yeah, I work for my uncle and he's, a man. And it's good though, because, when you work for your family, you don't get like fucked over like you do in Hollywood or whatever. Like,
Got him.
I just understand, like, my life is okay too, and I felt like it made me feel bad that anybody would feel defensive. I think sometimes that's what sort of happens with people. I don't know. There's this, status thing.
It's human nature, yeah.
So I think for the most part, I'm just like, I think either they don't really care or they don't like it, but every once in a while, people who are interested in this field, then they are interested in talking to me because, just for information and that kind of stuff. Like that stuff I love. And that to me is, it's not so much that it's like a statusy thing, but it's like you're doing something that I want to do, and how do I do that? And
yeah, that's completely that again. That's I feel like human nature. That's how that works. Another first this episode has that I wanted to ask you about is this is the first episode of The Simpsons to be rated TV 14 instead of TV PG. And are you just an edgelord? Is that your thing or no? Is it the stupid sexy Flanders? Is that what did it? His ass was popping. I won't lie.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we were brave enough because we did kind of go, ooh, is that too much? It was like, wow, that's his butt. And then
like he's wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all.
It made us laugh, but I do know there was a moment of like, is it too much? And then I think we just kind of decided, yeah, let's go for it.
Do you remember anything from the origins of that joke? Like where all of that came from?
I know that like the way it all kind of came, we knew Marge needed to be hurt. So we thought, okay, we're going to, and I also realized, I don't know if it was the first that they listed, but the Simpsons hadn't been skiing. So people were like, oh, we should take them skiing, or at least I don't think. So they were like, now I'm not a skier, so I didn't have a lot of, I've skied a couple of times at that point. But I didn't have a lot of, oh yeah, great thing. And I remember it was George who came up with the idea that like, he thought it would be funny that Marge would be the only one who didn't ski and gets injured.
The clock gag is so good.
Yeah, we hadn't really figured out but yeah, then eventually it was just like a nail. The cuckoo clock breaks her leg.
And they fix it just by like, oh, here's the problem, and they just turn it up right.
I don't know, do it. And so at one point, I think it was Ian, because I remember he was running the room. He said, there's always that guy, like your friend who shows up and they're wearing that super skin tight ski outfit, which I did not know about. So and this was like,
I've never seen that either.
Yeah, and Ian is like, he's a Maxstone Graham, and it's a different world. He's skied a lot, and he probably I can imagine, and he's a triathlete and all that, so I can imagine he would probably have a friend who would be like a speed skater or whatever, skier. So I just had that. I knew we had that aspect that Flanders would come and be like, eh. And so I think I pitched. I think in my script I had, it feels like I'm wearing nothing at all, and I think I wrote "Stupid Sexy Flanders."
Nice.
But the idea of him coming. No, you know what? Yeah, and then somebody else. It was, I don't remember who else had the idea that it would come back. That was, and I can't remember who did that. But I thought that was brilliant. But that like later when he was like, okay, think of what the instructor said. It coming back was somebody else's idea, and that really kind of cemented it.
It's now one of the most popular Simpson memes of all time.
Seriously, it pops up so often. In fact, I was going to ask, I just sent in the group chat here on the Zoom call, have you seen this action figure that's coming out from Super Sexy Flanders?
I have ordered it.
Nice.
Ordered that and the neon one. I don't know what I'm going to do with the two of them. With the two colors. Yeah, it's pretty sexy.
It is. It's a fun collectible. I'm looking at it right now. But yeah, I just thought that was so great. And then honestly, that sequence is probably the most memorable from the episode in so many ways, just because of how meme worthy it is. But there's another just completely underrated physical gag with Homer right after that like very much reminds me of like the canyon fall in so many ways, where he's doing the snow thing, and then it's like, this is the most painful thing I've ever experienced, and he gets moguls to the crotch one after the other. Like that is just that's like the type of stuff I love to show to my nephews from the show. They're like 3 and 5, but like they will laugh their ass off at Homer getting hurt. Yeah,
that was like, again, I don't remember who. Some of it I don't remember, but that wasn't mine because I don't know. But that his skis would split and that he would be bashed in the crotch with moguls. And but I do.
That's just a funny sentence. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I do know that, like, and it's almost that because we knew this already. Scully pitched when his leg split. He goes, "Oh, this is the worst pain ever," which is only funny if you know what's coming up. Like, you kind of know that, like, the next, like, on first viewing, people wouldn't realize how funny that is until the next time you watch, when you go, okay, just wait, Homer.
And then immediately, I'll take another single rider, please.
Yeah. He falls. There's this, the fall off this he kind of falls off, like he goes like a ski jump, right? And then he falls. There used to be, I think it was Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
And it used to be one of the opening sequences was like the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. And then agony of defeat, they would always show this skier flying off the ski jump. And that's basically kind of a shot for shot.
I don't remember what station, but they used to play reruns of that show at like 2 a.m. when I was in high school or college, and yeah, I'd watch that all the time. It's like a precursor to Jackass, but like more serious. Instead of shopping carts, it was like really people trying. But yeah, so we've already jumped into a lot of the independent jokes and sequences, and we can talk more about them as we come along. But let's back up just a little bit. The episode is titled Little Big Mom, which originally aired on January 9th of the year 2000, which is just kind of cool to transition from the 90s into the early aughts. The chalkboard gag on this one was, "I will not create art from dung," which is listed on IMDb as being inspired by an exhibit that was on display in the Brooklyn Museum of Art. Was there shit art happening in New York during this time? Is that what happened?
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I don't remember that. There was that time. There was Piss Christ was one that had happened for a long time. The picture of with in the plexiglass with urine. I remember that. I don't remember the dung thing, but yeah.
These damn creative types, you know how they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard when we do something that's been like really in the news, and then some things really stick in the consciousness and some things don't. I can't even really remember what that was.
So
but I do think it's a good thing in general not to create art out of dung.
Yeah. But follow your heart. Do whatever makes you happy. I don't know.
Or follow your butt in this case.
Yeah, I guess so. The couch gag on this one, though, you just said something like certain things just catch the moment of time. And this one is one of them in a weird way. But you have the Simpsons on the couch as crash test dummies, which is something that became way more popular than it ever was or should have been. I mean, there was a cartoon show, those commercials, the toys. And I actually have a friend, it's another comedian friend of mine who's in her 20s. And one of my friends made a meme with crash test dummies, and she was like, "I don't get it." And I was like, "Do you know who the crash test dummies are?" And she's like the things they use to test auto car. Yeah. I mean, like, I know it, like, but like, do you know those were like characters? Those were like a whole thing. Like there was a show. She's like the dolls they use, the mannequins they use. Yeah, it was like completely just like lost on her. Yeah, I just thought that was funny that this in itself is almost like a product of its time, just because that was a weird time where tools for safety became icons of pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, the couch gags, we generally do them as sometimes we'll do them where especially if we need an especially long one. But a lot of times, sometimes it'll just be like a group because we split into two groups often, and somebody's working on the automatic, somebody's working on the table read, and sometimes it'll be like one group finishes early and it'll be like, okay, just do couch gags. and so we'll do a list of them. And now we definitely need the internet, because so many times we'll go, what if? And then we go, oh no, we totally did that.
You have to watch the compilation where they put all of them together on YouTube.
I don't know if we've ever seen the whole compilation, but we do we did have an intern come in once and just sort of make a file for us. And then, but then now just to update it, I think we sort of depend on like Wiki Simpsons and things, and hopefully they're accurate. But yeah, it is always like, sometimes we go, oh yeah, this is a great idea. And then we like couch gag, Ferris wheel or whatever. No, it's been done. But yeah, generally, I always generally think they've got to sit down in some way. And so I just try to think of like, where do people sit down? And I think generally that's where
that's where those start. It seems like a real smart move now that you guys will kind of pawn those off on other artists who will like take over for a week, so you guys can just be like, yeah, we'll just work on the episode this time.
Yeah, well, we did a couple, and they just turned out so well.
Yeah, some of those are really, really fun.
Yeah, I think it becomes more about like, sometimes we'll think about, oh, what about this guy, or and then we sort of see what they want to do. I think it generally takes we sometimes we'll try and put them on a short show, but sometimes it's like, gotta cut a minute out of the show.
To fit the couch gag, how times have changed.
Okay. Yeah.
Speaking of really fun things about The Simpsons, we both are big fans of Itchy and Scratchy, and I have to say this opening is an absolute blast. I like just die. Well, that's a weird word to use, but I die laughing every time with the cloning machine going straight into the killing machine. That is just so damn funny. They actually Itchy gets bored of killing Scratchy, so he's just like, well, I'll just automate everything. And then and the whole Dolly thing at the time, I remember that was just like a big the sheep that they cloned. We've cloned humans at this point, right? Like that's happened. They cloned a sheep in the 90s.
Happening in some little lab that they're not supposed to talk about.
They do it, see if it works, then drop them into a kill machine.
No, I'm sure. And also this was, I was very happy because we hadn't done, there's actually a long, I don't like it, somebody will have to go back and see, but I remember Scully saying, oh, we haven't done an Itchy and Scratchy in a while. So
yeah,
happy to, like, we had a little period of not doing it. So because I love Itchy and Scratchy. And one of my favorite things about Itchy and Scratchy is for me, I always want Lisa to act like an 8-year-old, and sometimes she doesn't. And so, but I love that she laughs at Itchy and Scratchy and enjoys it like on the same level as Bart. And that's always charming to me. But yeah, and actually I feel like much later we've actually done another like longer episode. It's kind of almost like what happens with Sideshow Bob at some point, sort of has the same kind of feeling of like, oh, if you kill the thing that you're supposed to kill all the time, then what are you going to do? Like,
I miss my nemesis.
I miss the chase.
Yeah. That's fair.
And then he gets bored of killing it. It's fair.
Sit back, have some lemonade. I agree with you. I like too, and that kind of dichotomy with Lisa, where sometimes she is she's clearly as smart as Simpson so often, and sometimes she acts well beyond her years. But then things like Itchy and Scratchy or Malibu Stacy, things like that, and she'll instantly, or a pony, instantly turns her into a child.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because I also, it's good because sometimes we can have her have more adult storylines, but also, we can also do stories about, being 8 years old, which is a really, I don't know. I feel like whenever I think of myself as like a kid, I'm generally thinking of myself at 8 years old. I don't know. Somehow that age is, you're not you're like a little bit more of a independent being, but you're not anywhere near adulthood or any of that other stuff. It's just very that special.
You've learned not to put forks into outlets, but like you're not quite ready for, taking on other responsibilities.
Yeah. Yes, you love toys and life is still very hopeful and sweet. And I know eight is a really great age.
And I think that you can see that. This is completely unthought of before, but like when you just that makes me think like Bart too, as a 10-year-old, it is that kind of, I guess 10, 11, 12 is when you start looking ahead at like, you want to be a teenager. Cause as a 10-year-old, you've got 2 digits in your age now. That means something. Versus, when you're 8, you're still a baby, but only from the 10-year-old's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, having had kids, I feel like at 8, you're still like, adults are great. And, but I think like 10 is the start of like, you know what? I can do this better than you guys. Like,
what does mom know?
Yeah, there's that teenager year where you're like, dude, I've got to like, I got this down. I got the world down and I'm going to show, which is great because it's how we get new ideas in the world, is that you have this whole crop of kids always coming up going, oh, we know how to do this. But I feel like 8 is more like, wow, the world is great. Or the world, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, there's this hopeful sweetness that I love.
We also see too in this scene where a lot of times Lisa's very responsible. In this case, she's very much a lump on the couch with Bart and Homer, who's completely a zombie from the television. She's so focused on the TV that she does notice something happening out of the corner of her eye with Marge taking the box of their goodies out. But it's very almost like Body Snatchers-esque here, where they're like looking at the TV so hard. It's like, what are you doing, Mother? I noticed an inflection in your voice. Are you nervous?
Yeah, it's good. It's a little like, yeah, just it just turns into a little bit of a horror movie just to sort of thwart Marge's need to get the stuff out of the house. Well, not to jump ahead, but like I love Homer getting stuck in the doggy door. And then
why did the kids not go through?
Because it wouldn't be as funny.
Homer just figures he's the one. And he gets out of the thing, but when he jumps off,
I love that.
There's some really great animation.
It's like juggling the box.
Yeah, he's sort of tumbling, but he's always, always the box is upright. But he's sort of rolling underneath it. It doesn't work physics-wise because, like, if you jumped off, you wouldn't be whatever. But it
seems like there's less ambulance involved that would be in real life. Yeah.
Yes. But somehow the energy is moving him backwards and rolling him that way. And but it's a great bit of it. Mark Kirkland did a really great job, and I don't know, I just love that sort of tumbling scene there.
I can attest that I caught a football once like that where I tripped and fell and I tumbled and it kept bouncing off the top side of my body and I rolled around and caught it. So I think the physics checks out this time.
Yeah, he did that. That's a scientific study right there.
I think the physics of keeping the box up, that works. But I just think like if you jump off a truck, you're not going to roll in that direction. You probably would.
Has there already been an episode where Homer joined Cirque du Soleil? Because it seems like that's in his calling cards there.
Or did he teach Bender that trick for Futurama? Because he does that in one episode, I think. So.
It's what's important to you, and for some reason that box is so important. I think if Homer was falling down the stairs carrying a beer, the beers would probably be okay.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, he'd have a whole flight just somehow still balanced. From the commentary, you guys talked about the fact that you use blueprints for the house. You have some sort of map of the house to make sure you're not like stepping on the toes of what makes sense in reality. But you also are very willing to break that if it's funny. And I think there's a case of that here in this episode.
Yes, actually, the TV room doesn't actually have a view of the stairs.
Right.
Really. If you, so that was like, well, this time it does.
I think that's a good rule. Like, I have a friend who runs an open mic, and she says, "Don't be an asshole unless it's funny." So yeah. I think this applies. I think this applies in the same case. But yeah, this whole sequence we already talked about a lot, but they're very upset that they're getting rid of their stuff. But this is where we really start to kind of paint the picture of what all Marge does for the family. I mean, not that we haven't already known that for 11 years now, but specifically, you can just kind of see the separation from from Marge and the rest of the family, which is going to obviously play into the end of this episode or the middle of this episode as we move into it. I know that there's a catalyst here that gets us going to the ski slope. I'm trying to.
They find the skis in the box when Homer gets it back, and they're like, "You bought these, and we've never been skiing."
You're so spontaneous. Let's go skiing now.
It was like never think or something like that. I have a cell later that if we can pause, I'll grab. I don't know if is this going to be shown?
Yeah, it will be to some extent, but it won't be on the audio version. So that's a weird question. Yes and no, but
we can pause for the cause.
Yeah, we can absolutely wait for you to go get your animation cell. We'll talk about you and how awesome you are while you're gone.
we can do it at a little later,
yeah,
but I
totally cool.
I have a little animation test that it's sort of rare that we have that they actually.
That's super cool.
Painted a cell for this to just test this one thing, later when Marge is in the hospital.
Okay, that's really cool. I always like hearing about whenever you guys go to new locations, how it's really fun, but it's so much work on the animation department because a lot of these things are being created for the first time. Versus if it's Homer at work, you've got some of that, some of those parts already prepared. If it's Homer on the ski slopes or Marge in the lodge, those all have to be created for this specific moment.
Yeah. And things like, they have a walk cycle and they have, we know how Homer walks, like we know how his hands move and there's sort of things like that of like these sort of building blocks of animation, but you have to kind of create a ski cycle, which we don't have, and things like that. If these other, like Lisa doing her country.
Of course, Lisa does cross-country skiing. I hated that and loved it at the same time because, like, she's exactly who does cross-country skiing.
The deer hated it too, apparently.
Yeah.
That was funny.
It is the sort of, I think it's the second time, but I feel like it's not the last time though that deer have behaved inappropriately.
Not endearing.
That inspired Critter Christmas on South Park.
Oh, it did. In Homer's Phobia, it's sort of the same thing. I think with the
the reindeer like attack Bart. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So,
I enjoy the name of the mountain, Mount Embolism. I also love a lot of the names of the the various black diamond or double black diamond ski slopes that Homer decides are too weak for him.
The Widowmaker is for chicks. It's like it would not be.
Yeah, that was great.
Colostomizer.
Ooh, the Colostomizer. And that's actually where we get the stupid, sexy Flanders moment where and I love too. Homer's actually scared of Flanders in this when he first arrives. He's got his like Daft Punk helmet on. He's like, don't hurt me. Here's my wallet.
And then I remember Ian saying like, "Hi diddly ho, shushing boots," and I was like, I don't know what that means. Like I had no idea. It wasn't until later what shushing is, but I thought I was like, okay, I don't know. I hope it's not too dirty.
That actually, too, from the commentary, we see Bart in snowboarding school, which actually just consists of them learning snowboard phrases, which I believe you said you actually had to like look them up yourself, and you weren't even positive if you were saying them correctly. Is that right?
Yes. Well, just like the Fat 540 and aggro on this kicker.
I love when Bart, Bart, I have to use the restroom, or Bart says I have to use the restroom. He's like, say it in snowboard. Gotta go rock a Duke.
Bart made me feel really anxious in this episode when he was rocking the ski lift. Like, oh my gosh. I don't know. Like, the older I get, the more heights get to me. And when I was a kid, I was laughing at it. And as an adult, I'm like, stop that. But he was making me very, very anxious.
Next week's episode, we'll record live while skydiving.
Oh.
I took my son skiing when he was about 6, and he was enjoying the bunny lifts. And then I think we were having this lesson with this woman, and I think she just wanted to show us everything. So she's like, I'm going to show you how to get on the ski lift. So we did that, and then we get up, and now we're like, okay. And this was at the end of like a 3-hour lesson, and he's only 6, and so he's like, okay, now I would like to go home. And it's like, well, you have to go down the mountain because there's a ski lift, and there's only one way down. There's no ski lift down, so it was
unless you're Marge.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the problem she had going up, she had no problem going down.
You can't. I don't know, but there's no way they don't legally let you get back on it. Yeah. So then we had this very arduous trip. We just lots of falling and lots of being scared, and then at the end he very politely thanked the ski instructor and goes, "Thank you. Now I know I hate skiing." I was like, oh, well, we would have cut the lesson a little bit earlier. We might have still liked it.
Yeah, that's fun. Maybe as he gets older.
Yeah.
So I do like to, before Marge decides to just take the wimpy way down, the whole scene where it's like, oh, we're almost to the top, and they crest the mountain, and you can see it literally goes up through like the dark, ominous clouds. I always like that visual a lot as well.
Yeah.
But Marge does decide to bail on skiing so that she can just go hang out where it's safe, which will come back around here very momentarily. Because we actually see that Homer and the kids meet up with Marge. This is after they all go on their private adventures. And the ranger has to save Lisa from the deer. That is also real fun. But we actually see them all meet up with Marge, who has been, what was she reading, I believe, in the ski lounge. And that's when we see the clock fall on her knee. So everybody, Homer survives a downhill fall. Lisa survives a run-in with a pack of attacking deer. Bart masters snowboard lingo without damaging his vocal cords. But Marge takes a broken leg, which is an extreme injury from having a small cuckoo clock fall on you.
They're dense cuckoo clocks.
They are.
They're out of moon rock. Way more than you think.
Now, IMDb says the clock hits her left leg, but her right leg's the one that ends up being broken.
Gosh,
I didn't have time to go back.
Over there.
I know.
Thought it was just the right leg.
Yeah, I didn't check that one, honestly.
That's a good catch. Also, there's when you were saying that there was a TVMA rating, I was thinking like maybe it was for the thing Disco Studios because he does.
It might have been.
I forgot it. Oh, I can't believe she's going home with those guys.
It's also like I want you to be relaxed while I do my thing. But then he sees that she has kids and he like backs away from that.
Moonwalks right out of there.
Walk away, not today, disco lady.
I also like the little gag with Homer on the ambulance, who's originally, I think it reads Downtown General, and then Beth Israel, then St. Mary's, and finally landing on Springfield Presbyterian, which actually, again, from the commentary, you guys said that one locked you into using a Springfield Presbyterian sign for the hospital for the rest of the episode, whereas usually it would just say Springfield Hospital or Springfield General Hospital.
Yeah, I think We had to make it a religious affiliation.
Continuity.
Woohoo! But that actually brings us to the end of Act 1. A whole lot happens right there to end up with Marge in the hospital with Dr. Hibbert giving her a diagnosis of a compound fracture and says that they need to have her remain motionless. Otherwise, a hunk of bone could zoom right through her brain.
Yeah, we had to make it a serious one because I think they usually are trying to get you out of there.
Well, and this will jump a little bit, but I love this sequence with Marge, who, again, often just doesn't get the laughs that the other characters will sometimes, but when she does, they're so good. And the idea of her, like, being so into cleaning that she's balancing on one leg using her, like, traction thing to like hold herself up while scrubbing the windows because she couldn't deal with a dirty window, or even her line right here where he's like, you'll have to be in the hospital for a while, but I can't be in the hospital, tomorrow's laundry day. Like her dedication. And
who's gonna de-meat Lisa's bologna? Like, how do you even do that?
Which, by the way, Lisa has no problem cooking pork chops later. She'll cook the meat, she just won't eat it. But yeah, either way.
She could have tried to maybe, but she, there's a contestant on Top Chef this season who makes shrimp, even though she's allergic. So I feel
interesting.
Yeah, she doesn't get to taste. She can't taste it. She has to.
Huh.
That's fascinating. That's like Bender when he's trying to be a chef, but he doesn't have human taste buds, so it doesn't go so well.
Yeah. Or like all of us watching Top Chef when we can't taste it, going, "I like that."
Yeah. Wait, you guys don't lick your TV screens?
Yeah.
Lick-o-vision.
Yeah. Oh, that doesn't work well. But I love to Homer. I think it's either Homer or Bart, probably Homer. When Marge is, protesting because of all the stuff that she has to do, it's like, oh, don't worry. The dishes and the laundry will be there for you when you get home. But of course, this is where Lisa steps up and is like, absolutely not. We'll all chip in. Everybody will help. Right, guys? Guys? And you can already see, too, which is kind of beautiful, that Marge loves that her daughter is wanting to step up and help, but it's almost like a Jedi and a Padawan where it's just like, oh, sweetie, you're not ready for this.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I think she's a teeny bit insulted by Lisa's, like, I got this. But, it's a little bit... Yeah, and it is like, I don't know why this sort of reminds me, like sometimes I get really annoyed with, sometimes there's period pieces where the women are so woke as if like, all we needed to have women's rights was somebody just needed to ask for it, and like, whereas I kind of feel like there's a sort of like that where Lisa's like, no, you let them get away with this stuff and I'm going to not let them get away with it. You know what I mean? Like I will make them chip in. And it's like, no, it's not that easy, It'll be a struggle.
Yeah. Oh, really? Well, knock yourself out. Just don't expect any miracles from those two. Yeah, that's real fun.
It plays into what you said earlier, Miles, where like you said the phrasing was that sometimes you like to see Lisa basically knock down a peg. You only like to see it in this episode because of how cocky she is. If she's not that cocky in that moment and she's just being nice and then she's knocked down a few pegs, then you feel bad for her. But like this, it's a little more comical because she's so cocky about it.
Yeah, it is sort of necessary for her to be just a little bit like, I got this, Mom, so that you kind of want her to like kind of recognize that it's not as easy as you think.
Before we leave the hospital, we have one other great throwaway gag that you guys have here where Homer and Bart have gotten into a fight with the bags that like IVs. They're like shooting the liquids out at each other. Dr. Hibbert walks in like, good Lord, you're wasting thousands of dollars worth of interferon.
Those are like, I don't remember who, that seems like a George or Ian joke. I'm not a big word play person, but that is like, but you're interferon with our good time.
And then it cures Hibbert's canker sore or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that they're using them like super soakers too. That's just a really good visual gag in itself. But the interferon thing is just like, oh, it's so corny and great at the same time. I love it.
Like, okay, I guess. We didn't. Yeah, I mean, I sometimes really love those. Like, I love them on Arrested Development.
I love.
Really?
I almost called Lisa a discipline daddy earlier, but then I'm like, she doesn't watch Arrested Development. That's just gonna be awkward.
Oh no, that is like just like a. What was the one? I mean, you know, anal therapist or anal rapist.
Yeah. I'm the first ever anal rapist.
Yeah. And then the I can't even remember like when he's in AA and he thinks it's an acting class because of,
yeah.
There's so many great, and I forget what is his license plate, and it's in the like.
Yeah, hold on. I can't remember either. It's so good. Yeah, I haven't watched that show in a while, but that's one of those shows, that series that, and I know that they for a while were actually lined up next to the Simpsons on the Fox lineup. Unfortunately, it didn't take off.
Anus Tart.
Anus Tart. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. New Start. That's right.
Yeah.
Like, a new start. That's so brilliant, isn't it?
Tobias, you blow hard. But yeah.
Oh man.
The methadone clinic, and he thinks it's method one.
Yes.
Like, everybody's getting up, and like he thinks that they're all doing their monologue. They're all like,
and then all the stuff they do with the Fantastic Four film, which was like this legendary disaster in the 90s. Like that's so fun too. It's so great to see Marvel back then, like just having no idea of what to do with their properties, and then Disney coming in and being like, "Guys, just let us do our thing."
Hold my beer.
But back to the episode for now. We see Lisa is very gung ho about trying to take care of the house and do her thing. It's already going pretty badly. We see Bart and Homer are just at their top worst behavior. But Lisa has a great idea. She's going to put a chore hat together. Only every time Homer draws something, it's either a practice or didn't count for whatever reason. And I love when it's like the whole point of the hat is so it's random. And it's like, oh, no one's questioning the hat. We all love the hat. The hat's great.
When I pull it from the hat, I'll do it unless it's a practice.
See,
look,
right
and there
now.
it is. But it's a practice.
And then you immediately cut from Homer trying to half-ass both jobs by just dropping the dirty dishes into the fish tank. That's genius.
I loved that actually. Yeah, that was just he had to be paying attention.
It actually feels like that would be a good solution.
Hey, the fish look happy. They weren't expecting Italian food, but it's better than what they usually eat.
I'm sure it's not the best for the fish, but I think they would like.
We do not endorse you doing your dishes in your fish tanks at home. Just to be clear, it's only funny when Homer does it. We also see things like Lisa's preparing their lunches and having to say things like get the firecrackers, or you can't trade your fruit snack for firecrackers, which is of course something you'd think you'd say to a 10-year-old. But immediately Homer is like, oh, but Lenny's got bottle rockets.
Yes. I also like the that is good animation. Just them like Homer is sort of like he's just kind of running in place when she comes out and gives them the food. There's just this cute little excitement, and then I think he kind of tells on Bart for something.
It's he left. He said that he caught his
something
sweater
on
a
the bus.
nail, but Homer's like, no, he left it on the bus. You're dead, Squealer.
And then she's my boy.
Yeah, that's really sweet because like early on in the second act, we still see Lisa in her mind is like, I got this. Marge doesn't know what's up. Like this isn't that hard.
Still think it's not as hard as they. I mean, it's a little harder than I thought, but not as hard as Mom said.
Right. She still feels like she's in control. which is obviously just not the case. And we do see the weight of this start to toll on her pretty quickly here, because she makes a very nice meal. Again, as a vegetarian, she cooks meat for her brother and father. She is trying to think of every detail, and she actually rushes to the kitchen because she forgot the shaved almonds for the salad. And comes back to see the bowls like rattling. Oh, and there's the great scene where she's trying to do something to his pork chop, and Homer growls at her like a dog.
Right. Yeah, she wants to take it to put something, and he like growls at her.
Yeah. I love it when she comes back into the room after leaving for like 2 seconds that even Maggie's plate is spinning empty and Maggie's gotten up and left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nobody appreciated what she worked all day for.
And then again, like right thereafter is where that scene occurs where now it's Homer, Bart, and Maggie is taking Lisa's place on the couch. Lisa is the Marge from earlier, and when she comes out, it's almost like they're so focused on the TV. She's had a long, stressful day and wants to talk, and even Maggie is just like, get away from me.
Yeah, it's funny too, because this just sort of jumping ahead, like when we were pitching out the story, we always pitch out very like detailed. And then the story, and sometimes we do just jokingly go down paths that we'll never do, but we'll just do it because it's sometimes just making yourselves laugh. We're just like go down this crazy, absurd path just to laugh. And I thought that's what we were doing when somebody was like, well, yeah, and then maybe she could make them think they have leprosy. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, no, yeah. And then we were all pitching, and then like, I wasn't writing any of this down. And then as it went further, I was really like, oh no, we're doing that.
This is happening.
Okay, wait. What was the thing you said? And then, but one of the things is that, and I mean, I know this is sort of setting this all up, but Scully said that what if she's visited by the ghost of Lucille Ball, because this is sort of the crazy thing that Lucille Ball often does. And so to set that up, they are watching I Love Lucy. So just to sort of why this thing got into her head, is that the show that they're watching is Lucille Ball.
I love the ghost of Lucille showing up. It's a fun gag. I like the name joke they do with her too. Where she's like, I think there's a few other last names in there too somewhere, but. And then
don't come out of the drums. That's my bit.
Yeah. Also, the scene here too, where Bart was supposed to do the dishes, and he says, "I'm just letting him soak." I believe from the commentary that it was Mike Scully that said that came from his real life like roommate from when he was younger. That basically they would almost get into like a competition of like who would let the dishes soak longer, because they would like it would get to the point where they forget whose turn it is to actually do them because they've been soaking for a week.
Yeah. I remember a lot of and I remember even like Ian and some of the other guys like, men soak dishes. I'm like, no, we can't do it right now. It's gotta.
Yeah, it makes the food fall off. I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But when you let them soak for 4 days, it turns out it rusts through the bottom of the pans, which I don't know if that's scientifically accurate, but it is funny. When Lisa holds up the skillet and like looks at Bart through it, it's an illusion.
That's a George Meyer joke too. It's an illusion. Yes, I think it's if you don't have quality pants, maybe.
Yeah. That's true. The Simpsons can afford to go to Hawaii on a whim, but their pans came from Kmart.
Well, they were the Flanders, right?
That's true.
But how did Marge and Lisa get there? Did they pay, or did Flanders pay for them too?
Flanders is just that kind.
Well, they might have leprosy as well, so he's got to get all of them over there.
Yeah.
Wizard did that.
Nice.
We also had a scene during all this where Mo called asking why Homer wasn't at the bar.
Oh yeah.
And we talked about this a few seasons ago. Like, when does the like complete change happen in Mo, where he becomes kind of like the depressed, pathetic, just for lack of a better description, person? And I don't know, maybe this is like the hard turn right here, because he seems very, very lonely and upset in this scene. And I'm wondering if this is the start of the Mo that we all know and love, like in modern times, because he's been kind of gruff and angry in the past all the time, and now you're starting to see the other sides of him.
Yeah, it's dark here.
There's been hints of it, but before I think that he's. I don't know if this is a start, but
we can blame Carolyn for it.
Slightly unrelated, but on Bork posting, which is this fantastic Simpsons meme group on Facebook. Somebody today posted a parody of Stan from Eminem, the Dear Slim, I think it is, the song Stan from the late 90s, right. But it was Mo writing, and it was Dear Midge. Really? I'll send it to you afterwards. It's very funny. It's a whole long little rap of Dear Midge, I'm sorry you haven't been calling or whatever. I guess you haven't got my letters. It's really funny.
I should get that cell. Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Dobby picture up of my dog that looks like.
There we go. Yeah. Earlier, before we started recording, I was pointing out like, oh, it's her and her doggo, and Richie was just like, oh, I thought that was her in a picture of Dobby from Harry Potter. But then, icing on the cake, Carolyn shared with us that her dog did in fact go for Halloween as Dobby from Harry Potter. So I think that that works.
I thought it was like a plush or something.
After you put it out, I could legitimately see this being like taken at Universal Studios. I mean,
Yeah, he definitely looks like Dobby. He's sitting right there. But anyway,
I'm putting on full screen to see this real quick.
Right. Let's see. Oh, you're gonna get it's too much like reflection from the thing. But can you see?
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh wow.
Whether we were gonna go like full on Marge hair on her, and here it's the left or go full on, or speckles, and yes, and so we don't do this very often because this is a fully painted cell, but yeah, they did it, and so it's in my bathroom now. But
Carol, I'm so glad you shared that, because again, from you 16, 17 years ago on the commentary, excuse me, you talked about how there was a test cell where Marge looked like a blue-haired gorilla. That's a very accurate description.
Yeah, we did. I mean, when we were writing it, I liked the idea of, cutting open the cast and it going like, almost like Jiffy Pop with like so much hair. You decide, no, it'll just be like the I mean, I've never broken anything, but I've had friends who did, and I do remember like the hair will change color or be longer or like white or black, depending, it is something happens if you deprive your hair from
well, and I like to, it went from Marge, like, I mean, there were moments in this episode that you would have to describe as downright sensual between her and her doctor, where, she's getting the hair massage or something. I guess that might have been an ear massage from her rabbit ears that are supposedly hiding underneath that hairdo.
Yeah. Her hair there's a lot of little spots in there that.
But so to go from that to see her, like she's a little uncomfortable or embarrassed, is like, oh, I guess, it's a funny gag. I think the only other thing we really missed in there was Homer doing the grocery shopping, where he had a list from Lisa and he's like, you weren't even close.
Yeah, he just thought that was a prediction.
And then he actually ends up having a conversation on the candy cell phone, which starts as a joke at Lisa's expense, but then quickly turns into him actually oh, what, are you not talking to me anymore?
They hung up.
Yeah.
And that was like, I remember my niece at the time was very young and had a candy cell phone, and she would talk on it so much that I realized, oh my gosh, when this girl gets to be a teenager, we're going to have a problem. It definitely did come true, but I can remember going into like a store where it would say like, no, don't be on a cell phone. And I'd be like, look, see, you got to hang up. And she'd be like, it's not real. And I'm like, you are just as annoying as somebody. And she would have arguments like, what? You just wrong. And it would hang up. If you hung it up, it would ring. So she would always like, and then she'd be hung up.
And another thing.
This person was stalking her, and she was arguing with her. But it sort of was inspired that moment.
There's another like moment too. I guess it's probably like the official breaking point before she goes to the leprosy idea. She actually calls her mom in a moment of desperation, and her Marge is basically like, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I'm too busy, doing rehabilitation," as she's getting like that hair massage. And then you do the classic thing you'll do where you'll pan out, and we had Lisa up close where she was kind of nervous looking, but then when you pan out and see the whole picture, the house is literally flooded. There's like stuff floating around. My favorite is Snowball 2 is like perched on like a little rubber ball, like floating, like he's like floating on an island.
Yeah, that was we were trying to think of. I think we eventually came up with the splitting, because I remember like there were 6 kids in my family. And I remember when I think about like what was the worst thing we did was one time we decided to pull up any rugs we had and we just poured soap and water all over the floor because we thought it would be like ice skating, but it was the entire house. And we were just like, there were lots of like foot injuries of people like sliding completely out of control into like corners and we had like kids. And I just remember at one point realizing, oh man, this looks terrible. But we actually did get it all cleaned up. And then to get rid of the soap, we had to pour water from like a watering can. Like it was a sort of linoleum floor, so it was, I don't know, it was pretty strong. And then everybody came around with a bunch of towels, and it actually looked cleaner. But I just remember thinking, like, my mother comes home in the middle of this, like the whole entire house. It was a small house.
But you got it cleaned before she got home, so you could have just been like, "Look, Mom, we cleaned the house today.
We did the floors.
Look how great of kids we are. Nothing weird to see here."
Yeah, she never knew about that.
Unless she's now.
Yeah, she saw all of the spinal injury, because we really it's not good. Like we're like slipping and pulling on our butts really hard, and I think kids are lucky that we're so bouncy,
Yeah, those rubber bones we have when we're younger.
But we did. I just fill it up. The whole house is full of that. I guess is the best.
Yeah, when I was younger, I lived in Kansas for a little while, and we had a basement, and there was a time where there was like a flood warning, and people were like worried that like basements were going to get flooded. And I remember as a kid not really processing the horrors of that and just being like, we could swim in the basement? That sounds amazing. Like,
that would be so cool.
So I'm sitting there like rooting for the floodwaters to get high enough that like, we get a pool installed for free, and like not really realizing the absolute horrors that would entail for, like the adulting portion of my family. But we do wrap up the second act here with Lisa having her big plan with just a little bit of oatmeal and food coloring. She is able to, and a visit to the virtual doctor from the makers of Dragon Quest and Sim Sandwich. We get a virtual diagnosis of leprosy. And of course, I love the line where, is that possible? But Bart, I think, is like, yeah, duh, we're pigs.
I love that the virtual doctor deuces out, like he just picks up his bag and runs out the door.
Yeah,
unclean.
That is the voice also of the guy who did the "You Got Mail," like it's the actual.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Not that very few people remember that, but a few people who remembered having AOL. That.
So that brings us to the end of our second act, and we open up the third act with the plan now in place, and Bart wondering, why would God punish a kid? I mean an American kid. But Lisa points out that leprosy thrives in filthy conditions, so the only chance is if they clean up the house, and she goes to get them a couple of mops. But Homer points out, mops? The cure sounds worse than the disease.
Yeah. And I don't know, that's one of those things too, it's not exactly accurate. It is a, I think it's a virus. I'm not sure. I think it is. But it's, it's not, it doesn't just come from dirtiness. It comes
right.
from, but for Lisa, she's not being completely honest. And
this isn't about, this is just about tricking her less intelligent family members into doing what she wants. Yes. More than, teaching them about leprosy, which they can apparently learn about from a bearded guy at church.
Yeah. And the other thing was that this is one of those things too where I was still very new, and there was a moment where we were making fun of like a little too much of lepers. And for me, I think because for those guys, they leprosy seemed like something that was a biblical thing. Like it doesn't exist anymore. And it really is cured for the most part, if you can get the cure. Like I think since the 70s, maybe it's been cured. But I grew up in Hawaii. And so there were moments of people like the people at Kalapapa in Molokai, where they had been sent to this leper colony, and it was horrible. And there was at one point they wanted to take the leper colony because it actually, and I've gone to visit. It's actually, I think at one point somebody will probably build a resort there because it is gorgeous. Because the way it's part of this, Molokai looks like a shoe, and there's this little sort of part at the very bottom. It's one little part of Molokai that is kind of covered with a mountain range behind, and coming down is all these waterfalls. So
wow.
It's just like,
are those the ones coming out of the purple mountains that are surrounding the Hawaiian Islands?
Yeah. I don't know if we'd completely capture it. And then it's a big rocky shore. But once you're, they would take them on a boat and drop them in the water, and they'd have to find their way back to the shore. Now you can actually fly there, and you can also take a mule ride over the mountain. But it was a way, like, it was just sort of geographically, you could cut off all these people. They couldn't get back to the island. But, at one point they were like, okay, well, it's cured. You guys don't need to stay here anymore. We want to take back this land. And they were like, no, this is where we live. And we've already been so mistreated. They were fighting to keep their land and keep, just sort of be treated with respect for their rare. So I had a different view of lepers, and I did not want
a lot closer to it than I think the average United States citizen, because being from Hawaii, that's was right there in your upbringing versus I was in team, like, I always just assumed that was like a made up thing in the Bible. Until I was much older.
Yeah, it's not something that it was a thing that I had to kind of like say, come on, you guys can't do this. I got really upset, and then we pulled way back, but it is silly. They don't cure it with electric needling. So I thought, okay, it's okay to be silly and those type of things, but I just didn't want to make too much fun of
Did you guys get any kind of did you personally, when you go home, get any kind of pushback against that from anyone that saw the episode at all?
No, I don't think. I think everybody sort of took it in the spirit of what it was, and I think everybody was just very happy to have it. As long as we didn't, I just didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to like make fun of people.
It's not. Yeah, it's a shitty circumstance to have to deal with, for sure. Not want to punch down on them. Since you brought it up, though, this episode was banned in Japan just due to the fact that it dealt with leprosy. And
oh, really?
I did a little bit of research on that, and Japan has a very rough history with the way that they treated lepers in their culture originally. They believed that leprosy was a sign of like doing bad things in a past life. And it took many, many years before, that was the early stages, but there is a lot of mistreatment of lepers in Japanese culture. But yeah, apparently that just the fact that it dealt with leprosy was good enough to say, no, can't play it in Japan, or at least at some point.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'd like to go down this. It's a, and I think it's a thing that in Hawaii, I think we feel very bad about the way this, because it was, at that time, if you had a sore that wasn't healing, and if somebody noticed it, it almost became like the witch trials. If somebody oh, I thought like it's not healing.
You're like, I just skinned my knee, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything, and you would be put in a sort of a holding place, and then so sort of watch, and if it still didn't heal, they would. So a lot of people sent there didn't have it, but they were just sent there, and there was no coming back from it. And the thing that was also very heartbreaking about Kalapapa is that like there were people who went with loved ones because they didn't want them to go by themselves. So they spent, it'd be like mothers going with children, or husbands and wives would go. And also just, I think that, I mean, if anything, I would love that there's not many people outside of Hawaii know about Father Damien, who was this Belgian Catholic priest who had like this killer post in Oahu, like you're a Catholic priest, and you're like, I get to be on Oahu, this great island resort. And then he finds out about what's happening, and he asks to go there. And when he goes there, it's like craziness, because it's just, almost like you would land and they would say, there's no law here, and they would steal whatever you had, because it was just
wow.
And so Father Damien was actually kind of he was like a carpenter, and he used to be a street brawler before he became a priest. And so the first thing he did was kind of kick some leper ass and be like, no, we're not doing that. And then he just got everybody to sort of organize, and he built houses for them. He built a sewage system, he built plumbing, and really made their life better, and got people to come and help them. And he got all this flack from the Catholic Church because they were like, oh, you're just trying to, make yourself famous. Anyway, it's a whole crazy story about this.
That sounds like it should be a movie. Like, yeah, that's a really interesting story.
I know. Yeah. They think they've tried it a few times there. I've seen like educational, like school movies that were pretty good, but we meant like it should be made into a good movie. Like, but yeah, no, I feel like, Liam Neeson is my dream casting.
Hell yes. I would watch him kick some ass and then save some ass.
And that was the other thing, is like, it was never as contagious as they thought. He lived among the lepers for 15 years before contracting it, and then eventually did die of it. But so anyway, that's the whole leprosy thing. But
that sounds like a good ending to the movie too.
Yeah.
Is a not because they're going there, and there's also some strange treatment at this point. Leprosy is cured, and so at this point, the people who live there, and even at this point when the episode was written, the people who lived there were. I actually went very close to when the episode aired to visit. And the residents wouldn't come out, and the tour guide said like you weren't allowed to bring children, and they said because we're monsters, which would just kill them. But they were disfigured, some of them, and so they would hide, and you could go and take this tour, which is a little strange, but also really beautiful. Because you could see the church that Father Damien built, and you could see all the little houses. They still live in them, and it's really just a beautiful part of the island. And Yeah. So at that point, there was no treatment. They're all cured. They've all just, and at that point, the youngest, so I don't even know if there's any, at that point, the youngest was 95. But they lived very long. And I don't know if there's any residents left there because that was a long time ago. But yeah.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, when is the last time you have been back to Hawaii?
Oh,
I know you did the film there. Last time we spoke, that was like 3.5 years ago, right?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to go almost every year because I still have family there, but I haven't been. I have a trip planned in June, but I haven't been. I think I went not last summer, but the summer before the pandemic. But
sure. Yeah.
It's been a little too long right now.
All right. No, well, I hope you get out there soon. Coming around the corner. But yeah, so that again, I legitimately hope we get to see that Liam Neeson film here soon because that sounds fascinating. But for right now, back to our story, we see that Homer is a little worried because they're on the outs with Jesus, but luckily they know somebody that's a little more holy than he is. And they go next door and ring the Flanders doorbell, who is immediately like, because he sees these disgusting sores. It's actually just oatmeal, but it's distorted through the like looking through the peephole. You got that fisheye lens going on, and yeah, it's he screams for Maude to come because the Simpsons are covered with cooties, and they're like, "Help us! We're diseased.
We need your brains."
Yeah.
But Maude actually recognizes the leprosy because of the scary lepers from the movie Ben-Hur, which causes
you saw Ben-Hur without me?
We were broken up then.
Oh.
A little sneak into their relationship history.
Yeah, peeling back the curtain. Yeah, you're right. The brains joke is probably the best part of this whole thing because they're like, we need your brains. Use your brains to help us. Your delicious brains.
Yeah, it kind of goes back and forth between them. Yeah, they're not doing themselves any favors by acting like zombies, but maybe, if you look bad, you psychosomatically feel bad.
Yeah, there you go. And at the end of the day, they were right about who to go to because Ned is arguably the kindest person in the world. And he...
Are you showing us?
He puts a hazmat suit on, but he does let them into his house. And immediately Homer starts kissing him in gratitude. And Bart helps himself to a handful of Jell-O mold, which he then tries to share with the other boys.
That's a good animation, too. Just the grabbing the Jell-O.
Oh, yeah. Marge is like vacuuming it out of his hands so he can't share it with Rod and Maude. I'm sorry. Maude is vacuuming it out of his hands so he can't share it with Rod and Todd.
Vacuums Ned's beard or mustache right off too. Get the non-alcoholic rubbing alcohol or whatever.
But yeah, that's when, as Richie pointed out earlier, he says he can't really help them, and Homer's like, "So you're shunning us?" They're not, but they do know of a better place that can actually take care of them, and then that helps or causes Homer to start kissing him once again in gratitude. We see back at the hospital, this is where Marge's cast finally actually comes off, and we see the hair image from like the one Carolyn shared with us a moment ago. The one with just the stubble, not with the gorilla leg.
Not with the beast hair.
And Lisa is actually still fed up because there's still so much housework to do. And Lisa's like, these lousy, no good lepers making me do everything myself. Oh.
They're not.
This is, I think, where we actually see that Marge gets Lisa. She's home now. They go next door trying to find what happened to their family. And that's when Flanders tells them about Hawaii. And that's actually, or I'm sorry, it says Malachi, and at first Lisa's like, "You mean Hawaii?" Mm-hmm. That's the one. They've got a top-notch leper colony over there, so we shipped them right off. Cost us a bundle too. Guess we'll be having an imagination Christmas this year.
Yay! I got a pogo stick. Oh my gosh.
I do love that no matter what gets thrown at the Flanders family, they always have a smile on their face, and Rod and Todd are just like, yay, imagination Christmas.
Yeah, I do think that's going to serve them well later in life. I mean,
Absolutely.
they're a little like sheltered, so that might be a problem. But yeah, their ability to be happy about anything is going to be good.
Well, Homer and Bart are already in Hawaii, and they arrive and ask for the cure, a bag of a few lobsters, and then to watch some gay guys get married.
At that point, there weren't a lot of, Hawaii went back and forth, but I think at that point, Hawaii was one of the few states that was allowing gay marriage. So
right. With that many rainbows, I mean, you'd really just be a fool not to advertise those. There's a whole industry over there. I do love too, like when we get like the majestic landscape Hawaii, it's literally like rainbows just connecting pieces of the islands to each other. It's very beautiful, and like the Simpsons. I mean, obviously it's very beautiful in real life, but it transitioned very well to the art style of the Simpsons.
Yeah, I was very pleased with how pretty it was. I like that even the cab driver did not want money. That's how they got a cab to Kalapapa, which is not accurate either. But yeah, and I do like that. That is the thing. Once you're there, you're kind of like, wow, this is really nice. That they despite the very painful treatments seems to be, but you know, they like being in Hawaii. I think isn't that the. By the way, I did not watch. Usually, I watch the episodes before we do these things, but I figured I would. But I'm not. I decided I would just sort of. But isn't it? They realized, like Bart admits, that we realized that a while, like almost immediately.
Yeah, it's basically like, oh yeah, we knew that, but we put on we reapplied the oatmeal so we get a free trip to Hawaii. Something of that nature. Yeah,
the lobster.
And they wanted their only concern was that they would get a great view, which is fine because there happens to be a great view from the electric needle room. You can hear Homer in classic great Homer agony where he's just screaming and doing and all that. And Bart's in the waiting room being like, thank God I'm not that guy. And we see that he's ticket 2 and it says next needling number 2, I think, in the background. Or no, it says now needling number 1. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I can remember that being a George thing, the electric needle room. Like we didn't really know what that means. It's almost like they're getting tattoos, but
it kind of does sound like a tattoo gun. Now that you say that,
well, it sounds painful.
I think they used that in Game of Thrones in one of the last seasons to cure some stuff.
So this is where, like you had said, Lisa actually shows up with Marge and apologizes, and that's when they reveal, like, oh, we knew you were playing a trick on us. It's okay. I figured it out after I ate one of my chest sores.
Yeah, that's what it was.
But they point out that Marge wants to leave, but Bart's like, no way, we scored a free Hawaiian vacation. This place is a blast, and all we have to do is endure 2 hours of blinding pain, and then it's nothing but shopping and surfing. So tonight they plan to put their fake sores back on and jump into Club Med to scare the normies.
It's like a timeshare situation.
Yeah, you just gotta but 2 hours isn't that much to ask.
Yeah, how bad could it be? But then they do call for Homer's the next up to have their it was some sort of treatment that sounded like it would be very painful if you had open sores on your back.
Yeah. Kind of standing.
Dermabrasion hut. That's what it was. It was the dermabrasion hut. Yeah. And there's actually a really fun little moment here. Again, you guys talked about this in the commentary, however long back, but as Homer's walking away, he has like a little like hop, skip, and a jump almost as he kind of is going. And apparently, originally they had animated it where he was walking or stepping over something that ended up not being there. But you guys just liked it so much that you just kept it in because it almost looked like he was like joyously hopping to go off to his dermabrasion hut or treatment. Yeah. He's just accepted. Got to go get my skin sanded off, and he's totally happy about it.
Always looking on the bright side.
Aloha Oe, doesn't he, at the end?
Yes, and it's so good because it's like aloha, aloha, do.
Yeah.
And then we get kind of a Hawaiian-styled Simpsons theme as we go over the closing credits, and that does bring us to the end of the third act and to the end of the episode, A Little Big Mom. Carolyn, is there anything else that we didn't cover about this episode? Any memories or anything that you want to share from your time of writing it or just reflecting back on it?
I don't know. I think we covered everything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I was so excited. One thing that I've always been super proud of is that for a long time, and I'm not sure if it's still true, but I know from a couple of times when Dan Castellaneta would be interviewed, or when we did sort of live table reads, and he said that it was his favorite episode. So I was always very.
Aw, that's a huge compliment. I mean, that's big. Yeah. Very cool. Richie, was there anything else that you had for this episode you wanted to point out?
No, I honestly forgot this one was in season 11 coming into this season. And that's one of my favorite parts about doing the show is not looking too far ahead, so that when you see something, it catches your attention. And this is a lot of fun. It was great. Like, you could say it was almost in theory, a simple idea that Lisa's just taking care of the house, but then all this craziness comes with that. And it's so much fun to listen behind the scenes on how some of the ideas are come up with, and then you literally got to put your own life into the story, which is remarkable and awesome and interesting. So thank you for joining us, Carolyn. Thank you for diving deep. Thank you for showing the animations that sell. That's really cool as well. Make sure if you're listening to this podcast, you actually watch the podcast so you can see it. But it's so cool. People forget sometimes that, everyone at the Simpsons, you're all normal people with normal lives, and seeing you guys integrate all that into the show
a high school
is
reunion,
awesome.
You normie.
But it's cool to see personal lives reflect the creations that you're doing. So
yeah, and there's so many people who work on the show, so it is always this sort of wonderful alchemy of all the animators and the voices. One thing I do want to just also a shout out to Dan Castellaneta. I remember when we were recording this thing, I said in that skiing scene, I said, he's being hit with moguls. And so he did that first, that, like that specific pattern. And then they animated to that. And I do think that does help, because Dan knows, I don't know, he knows Homer so well, and just getting that rhythm, and it's kind of amazing. I'm always impressed whenever I see that, just knowing how, I just remembered him, because he hadn't realized it, and then him getting that note and just going, oh, okay, and then changing his shout, his ow, to have moguls in it.
That's
mogul
so cool.
hits in it, and then they animate to it, and it's really just an amazing little.
It's always fun to hear about like the collaboration that goes into these things. I would say even more than a traditional show, or even just animated shows in general, I think have that unique aspect to them, that there's more hands involved with the creation of each joke, and it's really cool to hear about how that comes together. And I do want to reiterate what Richie already said, but thank you so much for being here to share your time with us and to talk with us once again. I've been looking forward to this conversation for 3.5 years when we talked about having you on for this episode when you were on the first time. So this has been an absolute pleasure to have you back. I know you're on Twitter. Are there any other projects or anything else that you'd like to plug while you're here?
No projects to plug, except for when I do write the Father Damien movie, and
yes,
look in theaters 10 years from now.
Please keep me in mind for a leper. I'll gladly make up. I have some scare acting, history.
It's just oatmeal and paint.
It's just oatmeal and green food coloring. I can do it.
So easy. But also, so do look at Father Damien and the whole history of Kala Papa. It's K-A-L-A-U, I believe, P-A-P-A. And it is an amazing story. And so, I mean, we made light and all, but it is a really amazing, interesting part of our history.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you. And thank you, everybody who tuned in to listen to this and download and liked and subscribed and all those awesome podcast things that you do. We really do appreciate it. Richie and I will be back again next week. We'll most likely be taking a break from The Simpsons and talking about the Invincible comic series that is now an Amazon original series. But we will be back to The Simpsons very soon. And the next episode we are going to be covering is Faith Off.
And if we haven't stopped doing this show for the cops, what chance do you have?
So until next time, be cromulent to each other.